In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how Oscar Patel makes an estimated $308,000 a month selling his looks maxing course on Skool. So you're gonna be looking into the content strategy he uses to attract people into his ecosystem, the method of nurturing those people through edutainment marketing to the point of desire, how he converts them on autopilot into his paying members, and then perhaps the most important one, how he retains them so that they keep paying him month over month. So if you're a business owner, and especially if you sell courses, coaching, or communities, then by the end of this video, you will know exactly what he did to achieve his success and how you can paste it and copy it to your own business. So from a simplistic perspective, Oscar uses the traditional strategy of attract, convert, and retain. So broadly speaking, he's attracting people into his audience with top of the funnel content, converting them with proof-based marketing and a simple funnel on Skool, and then he retains them using 8 genius strategies we're gonna be breaking down later in the video. So first, to explain how he's actually attracting people into his funnel, we need to understand this, his brand and an archetype. See, this is absolutely crucial to understand because every single coach that actually is serious about making money online has this one thing in common: a clear brand and an archetype. Shelby Sapp has her Pilates girl aesthetic, someone like Iman Ghazi would have the old money aesthetic, and Oscar archetype is the biohacker. Everything about him stems from this one positioning. And his brand is built on a set of very clear associations like health, looks maxing, nature, fitness, biohacking, science, longevity, self-improvement. Also anti-big pharma, anti-plastic surgeries. There's also a set of clear character traits he's trying to showcase in his content, such as being trustworthy, intelligent, and professional expert, kind of like a doctor figure. When it comes to the core promise, is basically becoming a supermodel, but just changing your daily habits. And at this stage alone, we can clearly see how he separates himself from his competitors. When, for example, we compare it to someone like Clavicular, we can clearly see that they are targeting a completely different ICP. Clavicular is selling the masculinity, hookup culture, status, when Oscar is selling something completely different. He sells the idea that health equals looks, that if you fix your hormones, your sleep, your diet, your habits, the looks will follow as a byproduct. And this single reframe is what allows him to attract a completely different ICP. So when we look at the before and after of a typical viewer, it will look something like that. The before is someone with low esteem, unattractive, shy, stressed, with bad habits and unhealthy lifestyle, but they have a burning desire to improve their looks. And after, they are confident, attractive, healthy, less stressed, with good hormones and better day-to-day life. So now that we understand the brand and a clear archetype, we can take a look at his content strategy, because everything stems back from this brand, and you will see that even later in the video. First, his short form strategy. I call it the expert short form strategy because there is a clear intention behind it. So first of all, he's posting 1 short form video a day, and not that long ago he actually used to post much more, anywhere from 2 to 4 videos a day. And when it comes to actually what he posts, he has 3 content types: transformation, value, and proof. And from those 3 types stem all the content formats that he actually produces. So first content type is transformation. This is everything around his journey, going from looking like the average kid to looking like a supermodel right now. This is very top of the funnel content. It captures the widest group of people because anyone who even cares a little bit about their looks will get hooked by this. And he uses 2 main formats to deliver it. The first one is the voiceover format. This is where he will share his whole story, show a ton of pictures, tons of proof behind it. This is where he will build a massive gap between the before and after stage of the ICP, actually be placed in the middle as the person who can help them achieve this identity shift that they want to desperately achieve that we spoke about earlier. The second format is the trending audio with captions. This is the most top of the funnel of all the formats that he does, and the reason is because the friction is almost zero. There is no language barrier, you don't even need volume on to understand what's happening. It's entertaining, visual, fast. This is why those videos constantly pull millions of views for him. Next content format is value. This is more middle of the funnel content. This is where Oscar shows the knowledge, the expertise, and debunks common myths about improving looks, and basically shares everything that makes people trust him and see him as an actual expert. And he uses 4 formats to execute that: talking head videos, visual explanations, long form highlights, and reaction videos. The talking head videos are the usual format. He's creating the hook with visual, verbal, and audio. He uses proven hook formats for himself, and if you look closely at his content, he actually reuses the same hook over and over again. Basically, he knows what he's doing. Talking head videos work perfectly for him because they position him as an expert in the field. Next up is the visual explanation format. This is where the make or break point of the entire video are the visuals. When it comes to those videos, what Oscar will often do, he will cover one specific very niche idea about looks maxing, diet, or anything else, and he will utilize a bunch of photos, a bunch of proof, and actually the expertise that he has about those topics, and this of course creates a bunch of authority on his end again. Next up is the long form highlight, and those are basically short clips repurposed from his YouTube videos. The good thing about them is that they don't require additional work from his end, and he can just get more attention doing so. And also the good thing that we're gonna talk a little bit later about his YouTube is that his videos are specifically made that they can be repurposed into that, and this is super interesting, but we're gonna talk about it a little bit later. And now the last format is the reaction videos. This is where Oscar will react to different videos and give his honest opinion on it. And of course, the whole premise of the video is to position him as the authority figure. And the good thing about the format, and what most people miss, is by reacting, he takes the virality from the clip itself, which means he doesn't need to nail the hook anymore. The clip already did that for him. And the last content type is proof. This is very bottom of the funnel assets. This is where Oscar shares either his own achievements or most importantly his clients' achievements, especially showing that his stuff works at any age and to all genders. He uses three formats here. First is the talking head videos, but instead of talking about generic concepts, he's covering a specific client transformation as kind of like a mini case study, and he's framing that as a testimonial to his expertise. Next up, the visual explanations is where he will stack a lot of different before and after pictures from his clients to drive a specific point home. And the last content format are the voiceovers. Those are very similar to his transformation videos that we spoke about at the beginning, but instead he's covering his client's journey. And something absolutely crucial to notice is that Oscar is strategically using trends in his content all the time. He always stays on top of what's happening culturally. That's why he will use controversial figures or trending celebrities or influencers in his content to boost both retention and the reach. And of course, he is also distributing all of this across TikTok and YouTube Shorts. And even though I'm sure he knows by the data that content doesn't convert that well on those platforms, he basically gets extra exposure for free. So that is his short form strategy. But before we move on to his long form, there's one more thing we need to cover. Because outside of his short form content, Oscar has a couple of things on his Instagram that help him convert way more people than the average coach. And to be honest, most people don't even realize those things. The first is the highlights. He has a whole highlights section dedicated to start here, which is a perfect entry point for any new person landing on his profile. Then he has highlight for his own transformation, which is proof, and also highlights stacked, I'm talking stacked, with client proof, which builds authority, and also again shows that this can be done at any age and also with any gender. The second thing is his bio, and his bio is intentionally done to answer 3 questions. What does that guy actually do? Why should I listen to him? And what is the next step that I need to take? The clear call to action to DM him the word ascend, of course, triggers a ManyChat automation, but also the automation does the same thing as a link in the bio. It just drops people into Skool community. And again, we'll cover that a little bit later. And the third thing is his daily story sequences. He posts almost every single day. New testimonials, new proof, new before and after picture with a simple call to action to DM a specific word. Apart from that, we need to also mention his pin post because this is absolutely crucial. The first one is his transformation video, which instantly builds authority and creates curiosity of how the hell did he actually do it. And the second pin post is a hard conversion asset. It basically explains the first question of how the hell did he actually do it by showing the unique mechanism. And again, the smart thing that he did here is he actually borrows authority from a renowned person, which is Dr. Mike Mew, which adds an extra layer of credibility for all the people that see him the first time. And all of the content type and his formats, the entire strategy perfectly matches the typical awareness funnel that you will see in any business. Because Oscar understands something that most smaller coaches actually never do. That most people who want to improve a specific thing, in Oscar's example, their looks, don't have the technical knowledge to actually pull this off. Meaning that if Oscar spoke to them at the level of sophistication that he probably understands all of those topics, they would never follow him, they would never watch his videos. So Oscar creates content for everyone. He shows authority to all of them, and this is why he can actually grow to those numbers. Because if he only spoke all the time in the looks maxing jargon, he would definitely never have more than just a couple hundred people in his group. But here is the interesting thing. Everything that we just spoke about, the short form content alone probably creates only 20 to 40% of the revenue for the business. Because what actually converts people, what actually builds that deep trust is the long form content, his YouTube. And he uses 4 formats to execute that: ecosystem entry, most common question breakdowns, expertise based content, and client based content. And again, if we were to look at kind of like awareness scale, ecosystem entry is probably for the people who are completely unaware and would watch Oscar the first time. And the expertise and client based content is for the most hyper aware people who already spend hours with Oscar. The ecosystem entry format is the first touch point. These are the videos where Oscar breaks down a specific celebrity and their transformation, which of course attracts a ton of people who don't know Oscar but are interested in the transformation itself and how they could possibly recreate it. Other variations of the format would be that speak to a larger audience would be, for example, the way you speak changes your face. Super interesting hook. And also additionally, in the thumbnail geniusly, he calls out probably his two biggest groups of clients, which is US and everyone for Australia. Other examples of the ecosystem entry format would be breaking down diets, which is super broad, and basically anything that you can think about that will attract the biggest number of people possible lands in this category. The second format is most common questions. And this is what I think Oscar does. He will gather all the data from his community, DMs, comments, and he will identify the most common questions that people have. Then he turns them into videos. And here's actually something super important I forgot to mention, is that most of Oscar videos are actually below 5 minutes long. And this serves two purposes. First, it creates much less friction. People are way more likely to click and watch through them. Second, the answer is delivered fast and sharp, which means that a prospect will get one of 10,000 questions that they have about it answered in a very complete way, which of course creates a lot of influence over them. Next up is expertise-based content. This is where his deep expertise will actually shine. Those videos are much more specific, much more advanced than how to change your diet or how to build daily habits. These break down specific parts of the transformation, how to improve a specific bone, how to fix a specific issue, or even a chronic disease. And this is how he hooks the 20% of the people who have a very specific problem or a limiting belief that they suffer from. When they watch this video and their exact problem gets addressed or maybe even fixed, the deal is basically closed. And the last is client-based content. Those are the videos where Oscar showcases his client transformations. Those will be client interviews or client case studies, or videos where he just uses the client as an example for a more expertise-based video. So those are the four formats, and the whole reason why long-form content is so important is that when you actually think about it, watching a 5-minute long video on YouTube equals to 20, 30, 40 short-form videos on Instagram. And think about it even more. When you watch a 5-minute long video on one specific topic, it creates much more trust, it builds much more conviction than watching 20 videos, every video on a completely different topic. And that's why I would guess that YouTube generates at least 60, 70, or maybe even 80% of the revenue for Oscar's business. Because most of the short form content gets people to know and like him. But the long form is where the trust is built, and trust is what actually converts. So now that we understand how Oscar pulls people into his ecosystem and creates this constant flow of attention, we need to look at how he actually turns all of that into revenue. Because pure attention is just a vanity metric. So let's break it down. And the conversion starts on Instagram. Every single video he posts will have a written call to action. And this is the interesting part. Only about 5% of his videos have a spoken call to action, which means that most conversion is not happening because Oscar is hard selling at the end of every video. Most of the conversion is happening because of the burning desire that has actually been built. People consume hours of his content across different platforms. They get attached to the archetype. They slowly start to know, like, and trust him. And then one specific video will hit the exact spot for them. And in that moment, they comment the word. And the second they comment, everything goes into ManyChat. In the sequence is one of two things happen. Either it sends them a resource or a specific YouTube video, which pulls them even deeper into the funnel, or about 80% of the time, it sends them straight into the Skool community. So either way, ManyChat is doing the heavy lifting for him on autopilot. But that's just Instagram. Because remember when earlier I said that YouTube probably generates 60 to 80% of his revenue? So how does YouTube convert? Well, pretty simple. Most of his videos, especially the more bottom of the funnel assets, like the expertise-based content and the client-based content, have a clear call to action at the end of the video. And that call to action does one thing, sends people to Skool community. So whether the prospect came through Instagram or YouTube, they all end up at the same place, the Skool community. And now on that page, everything is designed to make sure that someone pays $40 a month. There is a quick VSL at the top, which we'll break down in a second. After that, there is also a stack of before and after pictures. And at the end, there is a quick breakdown of what you will actually get inside. So when it comes to his VSL, it follows a typical story VSL format. He starts by explaining his own story. He breaks down his transformation, which immediately creates a couple of things: curiosity, proof, and also an emotional connection. Because remember, everything still goes back to the archetype. Oscar knows exactly who he is talking to, so he opens with all the things that the viewer is already thinking about themselves. About a minute into the video, he starts breaking down all the proof and the steps he took to actually transform. And here is where he also very smartly adds a lot of borrowed authority, meaning that he will say that he had a bunch of internships at different companies. He also names drops a very big person in the space, which is Dr. Mike Mew, and also talks about his mom, his sister, his friends. So at this point, you don't just have his transformation to trust, but you have all all of those different signals that you can believe in, and that of course creates much more authority on his end. And this is something that I really want you to notice. Borrowed authority is one of the most underused conversion tools out there, because most people with Skool communities, most coaches, try to build all the authority from scratch. They try to be that guy. But Oscar is smart enough to know that if he stacks his name next to people who already have authority in the space, the authority transfers onto him. Then the last 3 minutes of the VSL is pure proof. Testimonials, testimonials, testimonials. I'm talking before and after photos, many of them. People across all ages, gender, life situations, which kills every objection that the viewer could possibly have. Because again, Oscar's team, and he probably knows better than anyone, that the most important thing that you need to answer in marketing is a simple question: is it for me? And when you are at that scale, as Oscar, you have multiple thousands of people in his Skool community, multiple millions watching his content. To avoid being stuck at only serving a very specific, narrow percentage of people that watch him, he needs to speak all of them at once. And the last minute of the VSL is call to action. He explains everything you will get inside: the course modules, the community, the weekly calls, the habit tracker, and he closes with a soft pitch. Just join, you will be pleasantly surprised. No pressure, no hard selling, because again, everything goes back to his archetype, his brand, and he also knows that the viewer probably is at this point already sold. Now, when it comes to the copy below the VSL, it follows a pretty standard structure. There is nothing fancy in it. First, he establishes the positioning. Again, going back to the crucial associations about his brand: health equals looks. And right here, he calls out the actual desire of the person before he even pitches anything. Then he breaks down the most common misconceptions, that improving your looks is hard, and he explains his logic behind why it's actually simple. Then he creates a little bit of pressure by saying that most people are only living at 40% of their genetic potential, which is a brilliant framing, because it's not about you need to fix something that you are doing wrong, but instead it's you are sitting on a lot of potential you are not using. It is way easier to sell it like that. Then he uses a couple of sentences to break down a specific objections that I would guess a lot of people have, and at the very end he doubles down on urgency by framing every minute you don't invest as time lost. And he wraps it with a quick summary of what you will get inside. And here's the thing: the copy itself is pretty basic. It's not super specific to one type of avatar, to one type of ICP. And at first glance you might think that this is actually a mistake, but most likely it's actually intentional, because Oscar again has 8,000 people in his Skool community and multiple millions on his social media. And when you are operating at that scale, you are not selling to one specific, very targeted avatar. So writing a hyper-specific copy would actually hurt him at this stage. The copy needs to be broad enough that anyone can see themselves inside the community. The VSL emotionally pulls them. That's why all the heavy lifting is done by the VSL. So that's the full conversion process. But here is the most important thing. Most coaches will focus just on the acquisition. Everyone is obsessed with getting the next member, the next $40. But the real game with subscription-based business, with recurring business, is that you need to do recurring work. It's about how long the people stay. Because even if Oscar were to sign 1,000 people in a month, but they would all leave as soon as the month ends, he would have a very weak business. Because the real money when you are selling $40 a month product is the retention. And this is what Oscar does better than probably most. And he's doing that using what I call a retention engine. The retention engine is basically made up of 8 core mechanisms inside his Skool community. So the first one is joining fee. This is where you charge one-time upfront fee, usually somewhere between $500 to $600 before someone even starts paying monthly. Now, Oscar actually doesn't do this, but it's worth understanding why this mechanism works, because there are a few reasons. The first one is obvious. You get a lot of cash upfront. The second one is most important. It creates real commitment. Fewer people join, yes, but the people who actually join stay longer. They take it seriously, and because they take it seriously, they get better results, and of course better results can fit into the marketing, which of course builds a very good loop over time. The second mechanism is quick wins. You need to reward people immediately for paying you. That's why, for example, games like Clash Royale are so addictive. They give you that fast progress at the beginning, instant rewards, level ups, immediate validation. Over time, the wins will slow down, but by then the user is actually invested. The exact same psychology needs to exist inside your community, because the moment when someone joins is when they are most likely to leave. So right now you have to show them they made the right decision. That means a proper onboarding, a personalized roadmap, instant access to the right courses, exclusive resources, or even one-to-one attention. But most importantly, solving their biggest problem immediately. In Oscar's community, if someone joins because, for example, they have problems with their jawline, the moment they join, they should have received a specific protocol to fix that biggest problem. That's a quick win. The third pillar is one-to-one onboarding call. You can call it a strategy call, a growth call, a game plan call. It really doesn't matter. What matters is the goal. You need to build a personal connection, make the whole experience feel real, and create accountability. And the one-to-one call fixes that instantly. It improves results, keeps people engaged, and reduces churn. But on top of that, it also creates space for upsells. And this is the part I want you to pay attention, because I'm 99% sure that Oscar has some type of upselling mechanism behind the scenes. Probably selling his time, or at least his CSM time, so customer success manager, for actually a high ticket price, probably anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 a month. So by the way, that 308K is actually not including all of those high ticket upsells that he's probably having on a regular basis. And if you take them into account, that would probably mean that the revenue is closer to $500,000 for him at the moment. The fourth mechanism is time unlocks. This is where you create content or access that gets unlocked based on how long someone has been in the group. It builds anticipation, reduces overwhelm, rewards consistently, and encourages people to stay longer. Examples would be an exclusive community call, advanced courses, mastermind access, or in-person events. The first is level unlocks. Same concept, but instead of time, it's based on engagement. The more active someone is, the more they unlock. Better resources, more access, higher status inside the community, or higher status inside the community. This encourages activity, makes group feel alive, rewards contribution, and makes the overall experience much better for the average member. The sixth mechanism is the growth specialist. Once you scale, you need them. And trust me, at this scale, Oscar definitely needs them. Their job is to handle onboarding at scale, keep people accountable, answer FAQs, engage users in DMs, track activity, and most importantly, reach out to people who are going inactive before they decide to leave. They also help with upsells and optimizing the whole backend operations. The seventh mechanism is the retention loop. This one is sneaky but very powerful. Inside Skool, you can add a video to the cancel page. So before someone actually cancels their subscription, they see a Loom or a YouTube video where you remind them of all the pain points, all the reasons why they decided to join at the first place. Think about how powerful is that. The exact moment when someone is about to leave, you get one last chance to get them back. And the last mechanism is the recovery process, because some people will still cancel. That's just the reality. But when they do, they should immediately enter a recovery process. The growth specialist should get a notification. They reach out across multiple channels, email, Instagram, Skool DMs, even the phone, offering solutions, exclusive deals, discount. And the best part about it is that even if you don't get the person back, you get a lot of data by just communicating with them and knowing why they decided to actually cancel, so that you can fix this problem later. And that's the full retention engine. So at this point, you don't just understand how Oscar pulls people into his Skool community, but you also understand how he keeps them there month after month. So this is it. That's exactly how Oscar Patel makes an estimated $308,000 a month selling his Skool community. And if you enjoyed this video, then you will definitely enjoy this one. It's a full breakdown of the entire business of Shelby Sub, which makes an estimated $4.7 million a month. So make sure to check it out, and I will see you in the next one.